On June 15, 1993, Lincoln High School in Cedar Falls, Iowa, was buzzing with excitement as hundreds of families gathered to celebrate the graduation of the class of 1993, a milestone that represented years of hard work, dreams, and aspirations for a bright future ahead. Among the 247 graduating seniors were 5 inseparable friends who had been together since elementary school. Sarah Mitchell, the valedictorian with dreams of becoming a doctor. Marcus Thompson, the star quarterback heading to college on a full scholarship. Jennifer Walsh, the artistic soul planning to study fine arts in New York. David Chen, the tech genius already accepted to MIT. And Rebecca Stone, the class president with political ambitions that seemed destined for greatness. The ceremony proceeded beautifully under the warm June sun, with proud parents snapping photos and recording videos of their children receiving diplomas that symbolized the end of one chapter and the beginning of another in their young lives. Where are you reading from? Share your city and country in the comments before we continue this story. After the formal ceremony concluded at 3:30 p.m., the 5 friends made plans to meet at Riverside Park for a private celebration, a tradition they had planned for months as their final gathering before heading off to different colleges across the country in the fall. Sarah hugged her parents goodbye, promising to be home by midnight for a family celebration dinner that her mother had been planning for weeks, while Marcus told his father he would call if he needed a ride home from the park. Jennifer kissed her younger sister and promised to bring her a piece of graduation cake, and David assured his worried mother that he would be careful and stay with his friends throughout the evening celebration. Rebecca, always the responsible one, left detailed plans with her parents about where they would be and when they expected to return home to their families. None of them could have imagined that this innocent graduation day celebration would be the last time anyone would see them alive, and that their disappearance would become one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in Iowa's history, leaving their families and communities searching for answers that would remain elusive for nearly a decade. When the 5 friends failed to return home that night, their families initially assumed they had simply lost track of time during their celebration and would show up with sheepish apologies and stories of their graduation adventures. However, as midnight came and went without any word from the graduates, parents began making worried phone calls to each other, trying to piece together the last known whereabouts of their children who had never been irresponsible or inconsiderate enough to stay out all night without permission. By 2 a.m., panic had set in completely, and all 5 families converged at the Cedar Falls Police Department to file missing persons reports, bringing with them recent photographs and detailed descriptions of what their children had been wearing when they left for the park celebration. The initial search began at dawn on June 16th, with police officers, firefighters, and hundreds of community volunteers combing through Riverside Park and the surrounding areas, looking for any sign of the missing graduates who seemed to have vanished without a trace. Search dogs were brought in to track scents, but the trails went cold at the park's main entrance, as if the 5 friends had simply evaporated into thin air without leaving behind any clues about their fate or destination. The investigation expanded rapidly to include interviews with classmates, teachers, and anyone who might have seen the group after the graduation ceremony, but no one could provide any useful information about what had happened to the 5 friends after they left their families. Divers searched the nearby Cedar River, fearing the worst, while helicopters scanned the surrounding countryside for any signs of the missing teenagers who had become the center of a massive search operation that captured statewide attention. Local media coverage intensified daily, with reporters interviewing family members and broadcasting appeals for information, while the story of the missing graduates spread across the Midwest and eventually gained national attention. Despite the extensive search efforts involving hundreds of people and advanced technology for the time, no trace of Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, David, or Rebecca was found anywhere in the area, leaving investigators baffled and families devastated. The case remained active for months, with detectives following every lead and investigating every possible theory, from runaway scenarios to foul play. but each avenue of investigation led to dead ends that provided no answers. As weeks turned into months and months into years, the case gradually grew cold, though the families never stopped hoping for answers, and the community never forgot the 5 bright young people who had vanished on what should have been the happiest day of their lives. The years following the disappearance were marked by relentless searching and unwavering hope from the families, who refused to accept that their children were gone forever, and continued to pursue every possible lead that might bring them home. Sarah's parents, Dr. Robert and Linda Mitchell, used their medical connections to consult with experts across the country, seeking advice on missing persons cases and funding private investigators who specialized in cold cases involving multiple disappearances. Marcus's father, a former military officer named James Thompson, organized systematic searches of remote areas throughout Iowa and neighboring states, convinced that his son and his friends were being held somewhere against their will and needed rescue. Jennifer's artistic mother, Carol Walsh, created missing persons posters that became iconic throughout the Midwest, featuring beautiful portraits of all 5 friends and offering substantial rewards for any information leading to their safe return or the resolution of their case. David's parents, immigrants from Taiwan who had worked tirelessly to provide their son with opportunities in America, hired technology experts to analyze phone records and computer data, hoping to find digital clues that traditional investigators might have missed. Rebecca's politically connected family used their influence to keep the case in the public eye, organizing annual vigils and lobbying for legislative changes that would improve resources for missing persons investigations throughout the state. The 5 families formed an unbreakable bond through their shared tragedy, supporting each other through the darkest moments, and celebrating small victories when new leads emerged or when other missing persons cases were solved using techniques developed during their children's investigation. Community support remained strong for years, with local businesses displaying missing persons flyers, schools holding memorial events, and churches organizing prayer services for the safe return of the graduates who had touched so many lives. The case inspired changes in local law enforcement procedures, including improved coordination between agencies and better protocols for handling missing persons cases involving multiple victims who disappeared simultaneously. Annual scholarship funds were established in the names of all 5 missing graduates, providing educational opportunities for other students while keeping their memory alive in the community that had watched them grow up. Despite the passage of time and the emotional toll of years without answers, the families maintained their hope and determination, organizing search parties on significant dates and following up on tips that continued to come in from across the country. The case became a symbol of perseverance and community solidarity, demonstrating how tragedy can bring people together and inspire positive changes that benefit others facing similar circumstances. As the investigation continued into its 2nd and 3rd years, law enforcement agencies expanded their search beyond Iowa, coordinating with police departments across the Midwest and eventually nationwide. As the case gained attention from federal authorities who specialized in missing persons investigations, the FBI became involved in 1995, bringing advanced forensic techniques and resources that hadn't been available during the initial investigation, including psychological profiling and analysis of similar cases from around the country that might provide insights into what had happened to the 5 friends. Detectives explored every possible theory, from the possibility that the graduates had been victims of a serial killer who targeted young people, to scenarios involving human trafficking, cult recruitment, or even voluntary disappearance, though the latter seemed unlikely given the close relationships all 5 had with their families. The investigation revealed that several other young people had disappeared from the region during the same time period, leading to speculation about a possible connection, though no definitive links could be established between the cases despite extensive analysis. Advanced forensic techniques were applied to evidence collected from Riverside Park, including soil samples, fiber analysis, and trace evidence that might have been overlooked during the initial investigation. But these efforts failed to produce any breakthrough discoveries. Psychological experts were consulted to develop profiles of potential perpetrators and to analyze the group dynamics of the 5 friends, looking for clues about why they might have been targeted or what circumstances could have led to their simultaneous disappearance. The case file grew to thousands of pages as investigators documented every lead, interview, and piece of evidence, creating a comprehensive record that would be studied by law enforcement professionals and criminology students for years to come. Media attention continued sporadically, with anniversary coverage and special reports that kept the case in the public consciousness and generated new tips from viewers who thought they might have seen the missing graduates in various locations. Private investigators hired by the families worked independently and in coordination with official law enforcement, bringing fresh perspectives and specialized techniques to the investigation that had become one of the most extensive missing persons cases in Iowa history. The emotional toll on the families was immense, as they balanced hope with the growing realization that their children might never return home, while continuing to advocate for resources and attention that might solve the case. Support groups for families of missing persons were established partly as a result of this case, providing resources and emotional support for others facing similar tragedies throughout the region and beyond. By 1998, 5 years after the disappearance, the case had officially been classified as cold, though it remained open and investigators continued to follow up on occasional tips and new leads that emerged from time to time. The families had learned to live with uncertainty while maintaining hope, creating new routines and traditions that honored their missing children while allowing them to continue with their lives in meaningful ways. Sarah's parents established a medical scholarship fund that had already helped dozens of students pursue careers in healthcare, ensuring that their daughter's dream of helping others would continue through the achievements of future doctors and nurses. Marcus's family created a youth sports program that provided opportunities for underprivileged children to participate in athletics, reflecting their son's passion for football and his belief in the power of teamwork and dedication. Jennifer's mother opened a community art center where young people could explore their creativity and express themselves through various artistic mediums, keeping alive the spirit of imagination and beauty that had defined her daughter's approach to life. David's parents established a technology scholarship program that helped immigrant families access computer training and educational resources, honoring their son's love of innovation and their own journey as newcomers to America. Rebecca's family continued their political advocacy, working to improve missing persons laws and support services for families affected by similar tragedies, channeling their daughter's leadership abilities into efforts that would benefit others. The community had adapted to living with the mystery, though the case remained a defining event in the town's history, referenced in conversations and remembered during significant community gatherings and memorial events. Local law enforcement officers who had worked on the case carried it with them throughout their careers, and many cited it as a motivation for improving their investigative techniques and their commitment to solving difficult cases. The case had influenced changes in how missing persons investigations were conducted throughout Iowa and neighboring states, leading to better coordination between agencies and improved protocols for handling complex disappearances. Annual memorial services continued to draw hundreds of attendees, demonstrating the lasting impact the 5 friends had made on their community and the enduring hope that someday answers would be found. The families maintained close relationships with each other and with the investigators who had worked tirelessly on the case, creating a network of support and determination that would prove crucial when new developments finally emerged years later. In early 2002, 9 years after the graduation day disappearance that had haunted Cedar Falls, Detective Maria Rodriguez was conducting a routine inventory of the police department's evidence storage facility when she made a discovery that would reignite the investigation and bring new hope to the grieving families. While cataloging items in a section of the storage room that hadn't been thoroughly organized in years, she found a cardboard box labeled with a case number that didn't match any active files, containing personal items that had never been properly processed or documented during the original investigation. Inside the box, Detective Rodriguez found 5 graduation caps and tassels, along with personal belongings that were immediately recognizable as items that had belonged to the missing graduates. Sarah's distinctive silver bracelet engraved with her initials, Marcus's class ring with his football jersey number, Jennifer's sketchbook filled with drawings and personal notes, David's calculator with his name etched on the back, and Rebecca's student government pin that she had worn proudly. Throughout her senior year, the discovery was shocking because these items had never been mentioned in any of the case files, and their presence in the evidence room suggested that they had been found at some point during the investigation, but had somehow been overlooked or misplaced during the chaos of the massive search effort. Detective Rodriguez immediately contacted the original investigators, including retired Detective Frank Morrison, who had no memory of these items being collected or processed, leading to questions about how they had ended up in police custody without proper documentation. The items were immediately sent for forensic analysis using advanced techniques that hadn't been available in 1993, including DNA testing, fingerprint analysis, and trace evidence examination that might provide new clues about what had happened to the 5 friends. The discovery prompted a complete review of the original investigation, with current detectives examining every piece of evidence and every interview to determine if other crucial information had been missed or mishandled during the initial response to the disappearance. Family members were notified about the discovery and asked to confirm that the items belonged to their children, a bittersweet moment that brought back painful memories, while also providing the first tangible evidence related to the case in nearly a decade. The local media covered the story extensively, generating renewed public interest in the case and prompting new tips from people who had information they hadn't shared during the original investigation. The discovery raised troubling questions about the competence of the original investigation and led to internal reviews of evidence handling procedures that resulted in significant improvements to the department's protocols for managing complex cases. The forensic analysis of the discovered items revealed startling new information that completely changed the direction of the investigation and provided the first concrete clues about what might have happened to the 5 missing graduates on that June day in 1993. DNA testing revealed traces of an unknown individual's genetic material on several of the items, someone who was not related to any of the missing students and whose DNA was not in any law enforcement database, suggesting the involvement of a person who had never been identified or questioned during the original investigation. Fingerprint analysis uncovered partial prints that didn't match any of the graduates or their known associates, providing additional evidence that someone else had handled these personal belongings after the students had disappeared from Riverside Park. The most significant discovery came from Jennifer's sketchbook, which contained drawings and notes that hadn't been visible during the initial examination, but were revealed through advanced imaging techniques that could detect impressions and faded markings on the paper. Hidden within the pages were sketches of unfamiliar faces and locations, along with notes written in Jennifer's handwriting that suggested she had been documenting something or someone that had made her uncomfortable in the weeks leading up to graduation. One particularly disturbing drawing showed a man in a uniform standing next to a van, with notes indicating dates and times that corresponded to the period just before the graduation ceremony, suggesting that Jennifer had been aware of some kind of surveillance or threat. The analysis also revealed that the items had been exposed to specific chemicals and environmental conditions that could help investigators determine where they had been stored before ending up in the police evidence room, providing potential clues about the location where the graduates might have been taken. Detective Rodriguez assembled a new task force that included FBI agents, forensic specialists, and behavioral analysts who could apply modern investigative techniques to the evidence that had been overlooked for nearly a decade. The discovery prompted a renewed appeal for public assistance, with law enforcement releasing composite sketches based on Jennifer's drawings and asking anyone who might have seen suspicious activity around the time of the disappearance to come forward with information. The families were cautiously optimistic about these developments, grateful for the new leads while trying to manage their expectations after years of disappointment and false hopes that had tested their emotional resilience. The case attracted national attention once again, with crime documentaries and news programs featuring the story of the discovered evidence and the renewed investigation that might finally provide answers to one of the Midwest's most perplexing missing persons cases. The renewed investigation led by Detective Rodriguez and her task force uncovered a web of connections and suspicious activities that had been missed during the original inquiry, revealing a disturbing pattern of behavior that suggested the disappearance had been carefully planned rather than a random crime of opportunity. Through advanced database searches and cross-referencing techniques that hadn't been available in 1993, investigators discovered that several individuals with criminal histories had been living in the Cedar Falls area during the time of the disappearance, including a man whose description matched one of the figures in Jennifer's sketches. This individual, later identified as Thomas Brennan, had a history of stalking young women and had been questioned in connection with other disappearances in neighboring states, though he had never been charged due to lack of evidence in those cases. Further investigation revealed that Brennan had been employed as a maintenance worker at various schools and public facilities throughout Iowa, giving him access to information about student activities and graduation ceremonies that would have allowed him to plan and execute a coordinated abduction. The task force discovered that Brennan had been fired from a job at a facility near Lincoln High School just weeks before the graduation ceremony, providing a possible motive for targeting the students and suggesting that he might have harbored resentment against the school or its students. Surveillance footage from businesses near Riverside Park, which had been stored but never thoroughly analyzed during the original investigation, was enhanced using modern digital techniques that revealed a van matching the description in Jennifer's sketches parked near the park entrance on the day of the disappearance. The investigation also uncovered evidence that Brennan had been in contact with other individuals who shared his criminal interests, suggesting the possibility of a larger conspiracy involving multiple perpetrators who had worked together to abduct and harm the 5 graduates. Psychological profiling indicated that the crime showed signs of careful planning and coordination, with the perpetrators likely having conducted surveillance of their targets for weeks or months before the graduation ceremony, explaining how they had been able to successfully abduct 5 people simultaneously without witnesses. The discovery of these connections prompted law enforcement agencies in multiple states to re-examine unsolved cases from the 1990s, looking for similar patterns that might indicate the work of the same criminal network that had targeted the Cedar Falls graduates. The families were briefed on these developments and provided with additional security measures, as investigators were concerned that renewed attention to the case might prompt dangerous individuals to take action to protect themselves from prosecution. The investigation had evolved from a missing persons case into a complex criminal conspiracy that involved multiple jurisdictions and required coordination between federal and local law enforcement agencies to pursue justice for the 5 young people who had vanished on their graduation day. As the investigation progressed through 2002 and into 2003, the task force made significant breakthroughs that brought them closer to understanding the full scope of what had happened to Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, David, and Rebecca. Though the discoveries were more disturbing than anyone had anticipated, through painstaking analysis of financial records, phone logs, and travel patterns, investigators were able to establish that Thomas Brennan and his associates had been operating a criminal network that targeted young people from various communities throughout the Midwest, using graduation ceremonies and other school events as opportunities to identify and abduct victims. The investigation revealed that the network had been responsible for multiple disappearances over several years, with the Cedar Falls case being just one of many crimes committed by this organized group of predators who had evaded detection by constantly moving between states and jurisdictions. Advanced forensic techniques applied to evidence from the original crime scene revealed traces of sedatives and other chemicals that suggested the victims had been drugged before being transported from Riverside Park, explaining why no one had heard screams or witnessed a struggle during the abduction. The task force worked with federal prosecutors to build cases against the surviving members of the criminal network. Though Thomas Brennan had died in prison in 1999 while serving time for an unrelated offense, taking many secrets about the fate of the missing graduates with him to his grave. Despite the progress in understanding how the crime had been committed and who was responsible, the investigation was unable to determine the exact fate of the 5 friends or locate their remains, leaving their families with answers about the perpetrators, but not the closure they desperately sought. The case prompted significant changes in how law enforcement agencies share information and coordinate investigations across state lines, leading to the development of new databases and communication systems that would help prevent similar crimes in the future. The families found some measure of peace in knowing that their children's disappearance had led to improvements in the system that would protect other young people from similar fates. Though the pain of not knowing what had happened to their loved ones remained a constant source of grief, memorial services were held to honor the 5 graduates and to recognize the dedication of the investigators who had worked tirelessly to solve the case, bringing together hundreds of community members who had been affected by the tragedy. The case became a subject of study in criminal justice programs and law enforcement training academies, serving as an example of how cold cases could be solved through persistence, advanced technology, and improved investigative techniques. The families established a foundation dedicated to supporting missing persons investigations and providing resources for other families facing similar tragedies, ensuring that their children's legacy would include helping others find answers and justice. The story of the class of 1993 graduates became a powerful reminder of the importance of community vigilance and the need for continued improvements in law enforcement capabilities to protect young people from those who would harm them. Today, more than 3 decades after that fateful graduation day in 1993, the story of Sarah Mitchell, Marcus Thompson, Jennifer Walsh, David Chen, and Rebecca Stone continues to resonate throughout Cedar Falls and beyond, serving as a testament to the enduring power of love, determination, and community solidarity in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The foundation established by their families has grown into a national organization that has assisted in solving dozens of missing persons cases and has provided support to hundreds of families who have faced similar heartbreak and uncertainty. The investigative techniques developed during the renewed investigation of their case have been adopted by law enforcement agencies across the country, leading to breakthroughs in numerous cold cases and preventing other crimes through improved information sharing and coordination between jurisdictions. Detective Maria Rodriguez, who discovered the crucial evidence that reignited the investigation, went on to become a nationally recognized expert in cold case investigations, training other law enforcement professionals in the techniques that proved successful in uncovering the truth about what happened to the 5 graduates. The annual Memorial Scholarship Program has provided educational opportunities for hundreds of students, ensuring that the dreams and aspirations of Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, David, and Rebecca continue to live on through the achievements of young people who have been inspired by their story. Lincoln High School established a memorial garden where students and community members can reflect on the importance of friendship, dreams, and the preciousness of life, while also serving as a reminder of the need to protect and cherish the young people in our communities. The case has been featured in numerous documentaries, books, and academic studies that have helped educate the public about the realities of missing persons cases and the importance of never giving up hope for answers and justice. The families, now grandparents and great-grandparents, continue to honor their children's memory through their advocacy work and their commitment to helping others, demonstrating that even the most devastating losses can be transformed into forces for positive change in the world. The story of the graduates of 1993 serves as a powerful reminder that every young person has unlimited potential and that communities have a responsibility to protect and nurture the dreams of their youth, while also remaining vigilant against those who would harm the innocent. Their legacy lives on in the lives they continue to touch through the Foundation's work, the investigative improvements their case inspired, and the countless families who have found hope and support through the resources created in their memory. The 5 friends who vanished on graduation day have become eternal symbols of the bonds of friendship, the importance of community, and the enduring power of love to create positive change even in the darkest of circumstances, proving that some legacies transcend even death itself.